Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving a recap of the Call Melbourne, talk about the meta, talk about how the event went down. The event was crazy, super fun to watch. We're going to get right into it. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoy your stay. If you're a long-standing supporter, thank you so much as always. Feel free to check out the Patreon, the Discord down below. The Discord started growing again. It's really nice. We have about like 440 members, 430, something like that. I'm trying to get to 500. That'd be really cool. And also, we're pushing for 3,000 subs by the end of the year. So if you're not subscribed and you feel like the content's worth it, definitely, feel free to leave a subscribe. But yeah, so the Call Melbourne, the TLDR for this event, this was literally the most fun event I have ever watched in Flesh and Blood for so many reasons, right? Going into this event, there's been negative community sentiment about the meta. People were tired of Lexi. People were now hating on Dromai. People were saying the meta has been stale for 8 months. And I'm not saying you're not allowed to have those opinions. If you feel that way, you feel that way, right? I try to stay positive, and I think that, card games are about innovation and fun. And, if you want to just have the best deck, have the best deck. And if you aren't playing the best deck, it can be frustrating. But overall, I wanted to see a little bit more positivity somehow, some way, and I was hoping that we get it maybe at Worlds or, even post-Worlds. Maybe things kind of slow down a little bit. People go back to just having fun, whatever the case may be. But I did not expect it to happen at the Call Melbourne. So the Call Melbourne had 265 players, as you can see right here. This is the meta breakdown. I have my little Google sheet. And it was a lot of Lexi and Dromai, so one thing I want to say, and this is just an opinion, I don't have a fact, I don't have a data point to back this, but the U.S. meta generally is more restrictive than the international meta, both APAC and Europe. Especially APAC. Like all the APAC region, from big countries to small, Australia, although all the way to even some of the smaller countries in the region, they do really fun, unique stuff. And if you're watching this from APAC, I don't know how many of you I have. Y'all are awesome. Like, I've seen like big events or semi-big events, right? Tier 2 events where it's like Rhinar is like the main one, and then you see stuff like, I remember Thailand Nats. I was just talking on our Discord, had a third or fourth place Prism player, and had a Uziri win the whole thing. Like, just some really cool stuff. So even though Lexi and Dromai were the most represented decks, Lexi, Dromai, Bravo is still the top 3 most represented decks by a long shot, right? So it's not like this was a topsy-turvy event that was completely off base and so the results were a little bit skewed. No, the top decks were still very much represented. But what ended up transpiring was insane. So day one, as you can see, Lexi was the most represented at 39, Dromai at 36, Bravo at 27, so on and so forth. So Bravo, Dromai, and Lexi were the top 3. No surprise there. Even in a meta where it's a little bit more fun and experimentative, you're still going to have that. So those are only 3 decks that made up over 10% of the meta share for day one. Of note, I think every deck except for Teklavostin, if I'm looking at this correctly, were represented. Literally every single deck. Poor Teklavostin. One day he'll hopefully have a place. But yeah, so 265 total people. There was a cut to top 64 for day 2. And so the day 2 numbers, 13, Lexi ended up making it through. So 20% of the day 2 meta share was Lexi, right? And then if you look at like just sheer conversion, about 33% of the Lexis made it through, right? So that's pretty significant. And then Dromai, we had 8 Dromai make day 2 and 9 Bravo. So again, even though we had a very interesting final and a very interesting top 8, as we'll get into here in a second, the top decks still were very well represented, right? It wasn't like there wasn't very many. I'm belating this point, and I'm saying it a lot because I know there's certain people out there that are trying to discredit like this event and say that top players weren't there, which is bullcrap. Michael Fang, Bro Spurlock, like a bunch of the APAC players, Ben Dodd, obviously, we'll talk about in a second. Really, really good players, and that's just to name a few. There's tons. And then some people are going to say, like, oh, the meta's wonky, that's why it happened. No, like, day 2, as you can see, only 3 decks made up plus 10% of the meta share for day 2, and they're all 3 of the top 3 most represented decks, Lexi, Dromai, Bravo. So, significantly, those were the top 3. Of note, though, for conversion's sake, Icelander actually converted very well into day 2. There were 14 Icelander that entered the event, and 6 of them made day 2, so 42% conversion rate, which is really high. Second highest conversion rate for day 2, technically. Phi also had a pretty good conversion rate, which we haven't seen, honestly, in the last few events. 13 Phi registered for the event, and 5 of them made day 2. That's a 38% conversion rate. That was good for third highest raw conversion. And then finally, Dash IO. 4 Dash IO entered the event, and 2 of them made day 2, one of them being an undefeated 7-0 Dash IO going into the day 2. We'll talk about that here in a second. So, of note, the heroes that did not make any day 2, Bolton. We actually had 7 Bolton in the event, which is pretty significant, and none of them made day 2, so that sucks. 6 Vincent, none of them made day 2. 4 Prism 2.0, none of them made day 2. And then finally, 1 Lonely Viscerai did not make day 2. Also of note, 1 Arachne and 1 Riptide made day 2, and I'm pretty sure the Arachne was like either X1 or X2 going into day 2. I think they're X1, which is pretty nuts. So really, really cool there. Again, in a field of Dromai and Lexi and all this other stuff, like you still see these less represented heroes doing really well. So that's how day 2 went. Let me pull this up real fast. And this was the T8. So the top 8, we had 3 Lexi, 1 Dromai. So those are kind of the meta decks. But then we had 2 Uziri, 1 Dash IO, and 1 Max. Now, I'm so upset that the Dash and the Max had to play each other because it would have been kind of cool to see if they both could make top 4. The Dash IO going into this was still undefeated, so it was 12-0 going into this. First ever, from what they said, and I think they're correct on this, first ever hero or player to go undefeated in Swiss in a calling or higher event, a calling or worlds event, so, or just calling in general. So it's really, really cool. Thomas had a fantastic list. I'm sure it's going to be shared all over the place. And honestly, it just had a lot of good stuff. Thomas just knew how to sequence it, right? Like, I think Dash IO hasn't been fully explored yet. There's still a lot to go with it. But I also think people are starting to understand what cards are good in that deck. And Thomas wasn't playing any insane, spicy stuff. Like, he was playing, like, the blue and red protocols, which seem to be pretty standard right now. Playing the Tome of Fiendals, playing boom grenades, playing Teklo cores, all that stuff. The only, like, I guess, spicy, it's not even spicy, but the only spicy tech he had was Dissolving Shield, which is really cool, and then Adaptive Plating, which people are starting to use as well. So, congrats on Thomas for an undefeated Swiss run. Thomas ended up taking down Joel in the first round, which was really fun to see. Joel also had a really cool max deck. It was a Mechanoid build, but it also is kind of like an aggro build that can just go into Mechanoid when it can. And I hear that game was really close. We ended up watching Ben Dodd and Quan Lee on stream for the top 8 match. Ben Dodd is known as basically Mr. Uziri. I think the 2 most like notable Uziri people in general are Ben Dodd and Plague Hive, probably are the top 2, I'd say, and then Arc and Altars as well, are big ones. But Ben is kind of the first person that put Uziri on the map. I forgot actually the event that he did it, but he's the first one to kind of like pilot and test and take Redline Uziri to decent prominence. And overall, that match was insane. You have to go back and watch it. I can't even dissect everything that happened. But Ben Dodd ended up beating the Quan Lee on Uziri. And there was 2 plays that a lot of people were saying were bad, but were actually insane. So normally with Uziri, you want to pop knives on with flick knives on very, very impactful moments. Ben Dodd ended up popping both of his knives, one of them very early, on key plays. So the Dromai was playing with a card called Sand Cover, which essentially makes an Ash Ward 4. So he's able to have like a pseudo defense reaction or pseudo reaction or to stop damage he normally couldn't defend against. Ben Dodd ended up playing a Isolate into a Death Touch, I believe, that had a potential on hit, obviously with the Blood Rot Pox. And I believe that, I think if I remember correctly, the Dromai ended up reacting to it or doing something where he blocked it out. Ben Dodd shredded it, which was said it was going to deal 4 damage. Then the Dromai ended up sand covering it. Well, Ben Dodd, once the sand cover resolved and created a ward for Ash, Ben Dodd then flicked one of his knives and popped the ward because it pops it before damage resolves on the Death Touch, and then the Death Touch hit. So popping his knife ended up netting him like 4 damage on top of a Blood Rot Pox that the Dromai then could not pitch away to. So because of flicking away 1 knife, he was able to guarantee basically 6 points of damage. So super risky play because now he's down a knife, but it helps him because in the Dromai matchup, Ben's playing it correctly. And Dromai, when you're Uziri playing against Dromai, you have to play to win, not play not to lose, right? Trying to just pop their dragons and play for fatigue, you're playing not to lose. You're not playing to win. Good Dromai is just going to pitch stack and then beat you later. It doesn't matter. You have to try to kill them. And that's what Ben was doing with that play. Then the second knife, he did a similar thing. I forgot exactly what the attack was on, but he basically guaranteed another 4 points of damage by popping a sand cover with his knife. So popping both knives is very risky, and the Dromai was still in the teens of life when he popped his second knife. So he had no knives left, and he still had to try to kill the Dromai at 11 to 13 life. But those two pops netted him 10 damage. So it was worth it in the end, and it was super, super close. Ben did amazing stuff and ended up pulling that out. Probably a game, honestly, that game and the finals obviously were the two most insane things. Then we see Uziri also beat Alexi. So top four, we had a Uziri versus Alexi and a Uziri versus a Dash IO. If you would have asked anybody what the top four was going to be and give your predictions, I guarantee you nobody would have said two Uziri and a Dash IO, right? We potentially could have a Uziri final, which would have been insane. I want to see a Uziri final for the storylines, but also I'm glad I didn't see a Uziri final because that matchup is a grinder to watch. So Thomas ended up taking down the first Uziri. Watched that on stream. Very, very close match. Uziri played great. Thomas played fantastic and had some insane pop-off turns. I think the Uziri gave up a little bit too much life in some places when he could have just blocked a little bit more, but it's hard in that situation. It's a lot of pressure. And then Ben Dottie beat Michael Fang. We did not see it on stream, but apparently it was a very close game. Michael Fang is a fantastic player from the U.S. And also is a very seasoned player. Pro Tour champion, things of that nature. So, again, not that good of players were here, but Pro Tour champions in the top four. Anyway, then we had a final of Dash IO versus Ben Dodd. Now, this was insane. We had an undefeated 14-0 Dash list, or 15-0, because they go 12-0 in Swiss, right? So 13, 14, 14-0 undefeated Dash IO list against a Uziri that has just beat a Dromai and is 12-2. A 12-2 Uziri versus a 14-0 Dash IO. That's insane. This matchup went 1 life to 1 life, and Ben Dodd was able to close it out. There was so many crazy plays in that game. I was up till 3 a.m. watching the United States, even with daylight savings time going back an hour. Absolutely one of my favorite events I've ever watched. And I'm not going to get on a soapbox, but this event proved, in my opinion, anything can happen, right? Like they've said, like it or love it or hate it, we have now had 6 different heroes win a calling consecutively. 6 different heroes. If that doesn't tell you that, yes, are there powerful decks that naturally can oppress the meta? Sure. But can anyone pull something out if they play properly and get a little lucky? Yes, that's how card games work. So keep that in mind. But regardless, amazing event. Definitely go back and watch it. It's on the Flesh and Blood YouTube channel. If you type in Flesh and Blood TCG on YouTube, go to their channel, go to their live section. You can rewatch the matches. They had so many cool matchups over the course of 2 days. Definitely go back and pick a match you want to watch. They had Max versus Dash. We had Uziri on stream. We had all types of cool stuff. So definitely go back and watch it. Would love to hear your thoughts. Super excited to see how Worlds goes. Icelander did not win, so she's still going to be at Worlds. But it was that was my one selfish hope was that Icelander would win, just so we see kind of a pretty cool meta shakeup with no Icelander, no Lexi. But yeah, regardless, amazing play. Ben Dodd deserves it. Thomas, fantastic. Even though you didn't win the last one, it's fine. 14-0, 14-1 second place on Dash IO, and no one was expecting that. Is unbelievable. So congrats to Thomas as well. Super fun. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are of the event. Did you watch any of it? If you didn't, go check it out. Let me know what your predictions are for Worlds. We're going to be doing a video on that here soon. And yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Please leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you want to. If not, it's totally fine. Go to our Flesh and Mud creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we can get more people seeing this game, please. It's a really good time to help support other creators. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.